Phil, thanks for your time as always. What do you make of this sort of weird limbo we're in as a nation? Some states in lockdown planning to reopen, some in lockdown with less plans for reopening, and some COVID-free, although we've got this Queensland situation now with a small cluster.
Yeah, look, everyone's at different stages, KG. I think that the moral is that, there ain't no atheists in foxholes. So all those states have got outbreaks, New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT, we're getting vaccinated like crazy because once you get this thing, the only way out of it is to get vaccinated. So that's the sort of one dimension. Then the other dimension, you've got all the other states which don't have COVID, and the vaccine complacency is the worst in WA and Queensland. And that's all right. That's all right while you don't have it.
Yeah.
But as Anastasia Palisade said a few weeks ago, it's a window of opportunity to get vaccinated. I mean, the ideal world is to stay COVID-free, like South Australia, WA, Queensland, and get your vaccine rate up real fast, and then you can sort of seamlessly transition into opening your borders again. I mean, their economies are open. I mean, as the Queenslanders say, here in the ACT and New South Wales, we can only dream of the lifestyle they have there at the moment. Yeah. But they're walking on eggshells because if this outbreak takes off, they're suddenly where we are, and they're going to look at their vaccination rate and go, "Goodness, we're stuffed till Christmas."
Well, just on that point, Victoria likely to pass that 80% mark, past the United States on first doses. New South Wales has passed Italy on first doses at 86.21%. ACT now has passed the UK on 88.57%. So, like you're saying, those jurisdictions are surging. I know there'd been the slow start, and the government's copped flack for that, but those rates now are surging.
Yeah, because it's born of this. I mean, ACT was doing pretty well, and before we went to lockdown, but it's a smart jurisdiction. It's the only one that voted Republic. Remember, KG, very clever people. But I digress. But the point is, once you got it, you can't get rid of it. Yep. And Berejiklian was the first to acknowledge that. She gave up on elimination. Said we can't do it. We've got to vaccinate our way out of it. Daniel Andrews sort of worked that out for himself a few weeks later, and the ACT came to that realisation. Even though we only get about 13, 14 cases a day, they're never going to get it to zero. So you sort of hope it doesn't happen in the other states like Queensland and WA and stuff, but they really, really should just get their finger out on getting vaccinated over there, because that's. If this thing happens in Queensland, I mean, they won't be able to eliminate it. And if Palaszczuk has to lock down, they're a long way from going to be able to open up. And, speaking from experience, you see how quickly our life was snuffed out on us,
Exactly. Well, but now these numbers are world leading and continuing to grow. That would be reassuring for Scott Morrison and the federal government. The situation in Queensland is not, because all of this flows into the federal election and considerations. If people are in lockdown at the election time, which obviously it looks like New South Wales and the ACT, Victoria won't be, potentially other states might be. And that flows in, you would think, to voting intentions.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, I guess Anastasia Palisade and Mark McGowan are the world leaders in being able to blame Canberra. They have parochial constituents. They're really good at Canberra bashing. Canberra has to shoulder the blame in terms of the slowness of the vaccine rollout and the quarantine thing, so they can just... whether Canberra's to blame or not, they'll blame them. But it will...
Whether they're in lockdown or not, they'll get blamed.
Well, if they are in lockdown and everyone's getting cranky at the premiers for their businesses staying shut, not being able to see family and stuff like they're doing in our states, and they'll try and deflect back to Canberra. But look, at the end of the day, I think the best thing for Scott Morrison in terms of an election is the country's open.
Yes.
And we're not focused on stuff like this anymore. We're focused on fixing the economy and the budget deficit and stuff like that.
But again, further to that, let's say Queensland is able to manage this particular these cases, and then WA stays where it is. They will likely not be open until the new year, according to what Palaszczuk is saying.
That's true, but they're open internally. Yeah. So okay, that you're going to have a demographic which is angry it can't travel interstate or overseas, but the vast majority are just pretty happy. Everything. Look at the grand final on the weekend. What you wouldn't do to have that in your home state. You're not be able to do that. So people, I think on a net basis, people will be more happy than unhappy.
Gotcha.
They can still go away and travel within their state and do and go to concerts and
indeed. All sorts of things. So they're in a good mood when they go to the ballot box. This,
Well, not yet, but
this-
maybe not with Morrison. That's the trouble.
Well, that's it. Are they blaming him for the delay and everything? And
I think it's
as
just
the state leaders have been saying.
KG, I just think it's so early on the election. It's so hard to sort of get a bead on it. It's wide open. There's no doubt about it. And I think the thing we haven't sort of focused on thus far is that when it does come to the election, it will be Morrison versus Albanese, not Morrison versus the premiers. Now, the premiers will be in there.
Yeah.
They'll be in there helping Albo as much as they can to the Labor premiers, and we're seeing signs of that. But people, I don't think voters have sort of crystallised that choice yet in their minds. And that's going to be something I don't think we can sort of get a handle on until we're through the Christmas period.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If in fact the PM doesn't go early, as some are still suggesting he might. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And something that I haven't seen as much as in this cycle is just how prominent state leaders are on the national stage, and how does that feed into votes? Does it mean, say, for example, WA, Emperor McGowan has every seat in that parliament bar 2. Does that flow into some sort of positivity for federal Labor? They maybe pick up 2 or 3.
Well, the Labor brand is very strong in those states where the Labor premiers are very popular. And look, in Victoria, Daniel Andrews is obviously, I think, worn out his welcome, and he's very controversial. But Victoria's a pro-Labor state anyhow, so it's really Queensland and WA where the federal coalition needs to pick up seats, or at least hold its seats rather, and they're the danger zones for it because they have very popular Labor premiers. How that translates into a federal vote, I just think it's too early to tell.
What's going on at the moment? I saw your piece in the Financial Review today. Bridget McKenzie saying it's easy for people in, members of Parliament like Josh Frydenberg in seats like Kooyong. She explicitly referenced Kooyong, fellow cabinet member on this climate stuff. It's getting a bit willing.
Well, someone, the great Phil Hudson pointed out to me today, said, what it used to be a big story when one cabinet minister went after another. Now we just sort of take it in our stride. But it's, look, Bridget's, I think, Dave Sharma's had a shot back at her today, basically saying it's a pretty cheap shot. And we've got to get past this city-country divide. Everyone's got a stake in climate change. Economically and lifestyle-wise, and it's and even Mackenzie's piece she wrote for the Financial Review, she's actually not hostile to net zero. She's saying, how dare you go out and advocate this without a plan?
So it was a bit of gratuitous violence, was it?
Well, yeah, pretty much. I think it's designed for internal posturing purposes and stuff. Barnaby Joyce is not saying that. Barnaby Joyce is quite consciously, when Dave Sharma from Wentworth came out the other week and said, let's go to 45% by 2035, and Barnaby said, Dave has to talk to his constituents like we have to talk to ours. He wasn't doing this city-country, latte-sipping, gormless routine that we've had to put up with for the last 10 years. Because Joyce knows too that they have to land something on this. They have to come to an understanding with the Libs on this because they're all seeing the same research, the same political research.
And it's showing up.
Yeah.
Phil Coorey, great to chat.
Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, as always.